There are whispers in the wind that go unheard. There are movements in the shadows that go unseen. There are voices that do not call from lips, yet they shake the earth beneath your feet. How many times have you walked past an answer disguised as a stranger? How often have you silenced the voice inside because it did not speak in the way you expected? Too many wander through life believing they are alone, believing the heavens have turned their backs on them, believing there is no guidance. But the truth is, the voice has been speaking all along. The problem is never that the message is absent. The problem is that too many fail to listen. You see, there comes a time in every life when the noise of the world grows too loud, when the distractions pull too strong, when doubt becomes the only thing one can hear. But there, in the stillness between the noise, in the space between questions, in the breath between your cries, the voice speaks. It does not always come in a thunderclap. It does not always descend in a blaze of glory. Sometimes it is a quiet nudge, a feeling, a knowing, a call that presses on your heart until you can no longer ignore it. You may wonder how to recognize it. How do you know when the voice is calling you? How do you distinguish between divine instruction and the noise of your own fears? Oh, my dear, you will know, because when it speaks, the world will shift. The ground beneath you will no longer feel the same, and you will not be able to remain where you once stood. The first sign comes like a whisper in the deep hours of the night, a stirring in your soul that refuses to be silenced. It is that voice that comes to you when all is still, when no distractions stand in the way. It wakes you in the middle of your slumber, not with a shout, not with a demand, but with a quiet urgency that settles in your bones. It is the kind of call that does not let you rest, that reminds you of the things you were meant to do, the places you were meant to go, the changes you were meant to make. It does not force itself upon you, but it lingers. Oh, how it lingers, waiting for you to acknowledge what it has been saying all along. Then comes the second sign, the alignment of moments that could not have happened by chance. Some call it coincidence, but there is no such thing when the divine is involved. You will walk through doors you did not knock on, find answers to questions you never voiced aloud. You will meet a stranger who speaks the very words you needed to hear, stumble upon a book that carries the exact message your heart was searching for. These are not accidents. These are orchestrations, signs carefully placed in your path, waiting for you to open your eyes and see them for what they are. The third sign is the most challenging one to accept, yet it is the most powerful of them all. It is discomfort. It is when the places that once felt safe become unbearable, when the life you once settled for begins to feel too small. It is the feeling of being pushed, pulled, stretched beyond what you thought you could endure. It is not punishment, though it may feel that way. It is preparation. Growth never comes without discomfort. Elevation never comes without shedding. When you begin to feel that pull, when you begin to sense that what once fit you no longer does, you are being spoken to. You are being told to rise. The fourth sign is clarity that comes when you least expect it. There are moments when the fog lifts, when the doubts that once clouded your mind dissipate like mist in the morning sun. Suddenly you just know. You do not know how, you do not know why, but something inside you has settled. The decision you once wrestled with now feels certain. The road that once seemed impossible now seems clear. It is not logic that leads you here. It is not reason that guides you. It is something deeper, something greater, something that has been waiting for you to trust it all along. And then, the final sign, the one that shakes you to your core, is peace. Not the kind of peace the world offers, not the kind that depends on circumstances or conditions, but a peace that settles deep in your soul, a peace that remains even when storms rage around you, a peace that cannot be explained, only felt. It is the kind of peace that tells you that no matter what happens next, no matter where the road leads, you are exactly where you are meant to be. It is a peace that does not need confirmation because it is the confirmation. Oh, if only more people listened. If only more people paid attention to the voice that calls to them in ways they least expect. How much suffering could be avoided? How many wrong turns could be prevented? How many destinies could be fulfilled? The voice is always speaking. The signs are always there. The question is, will you listen? There is a voice that does not break the silence, but fills it. A voice that does not scream for attention, yet it cannot be ignored. It moves through moments, through feelings, through the quiet places where distractions dare not tread. It is always there, calling, guiding, pulling you toward a truth you were born to know. And yet, so many people search for signs as if they are lost, as if the voice is too far away to reach them. But the signs are not distant. They are as close as breath, as near as the beat of your own heart. They are woven into the very fabric of your days, waiting for you to see, to hear, to accept. And oh, how many have felt the pull and resisted. How many have stood at the edge of their purpose, trembling, afraid to step forward, not because they did not hear, not because they did not see, but because they did not trust what was being revealed. There is a fear that comes with the voice, a fear that whispers, "What if you are wrong? What if you have misheard? What if the path ahead is too much for you to bear?" And so they stay, rooted in the comfort of the familiar, even as that comfort turns to restlessness, even as the peace they once had slips through their fingers. But the voice does not stop calling. It is patient, unyielding. It will not force its way in, but it will never leave. It speaks through the shifting of seasons, through the opening and closing of doors, through the weight of a moment that tells you that life as you know it cannot remain the same. It will shake you if it must. It will strip away what you once clung to. It will allow what no longer serves you to crumble, not as punishment, but as mercy. Because if you will not move on your own, the voice will move for you. There is something about the timing of the voice that cannot be controlled. It does not always speak when you want it to, but it always speaks when you need it. It will not answer the questions you ask in the way you expect, but it will answer. Sometimes the silence is an answer. Sometimes the closed door is the answer. Sometimes the sudden redirection, the change, of course, the unexpected shift is not a detour, but the very thing meant to lead you where you were always meant to go. But oh, how difficult it is to trust when you cannot see the full picture. How difficult it is to step forward when the next step is shrouded in uncertainty. That is where faith begins. That is where trust is built. The voice does not call you to a path already lit with certainty. It calls you to walk even when the way is unclear, even when you cannot see beyond the first step. Because if you wait for proof, if you wait for the entire plan to be laid out before you, you will never move. And the voice does not operate within the bounds of human reasoning. It does not wait for you to understand before it speaks. It simply calls, and it waits for you to answer. The weight of obedience is heavy. To hear and to follow are two different things. It is one thing to recognize the signs, it is another to act on them. Many hear, but do not move. Many see, but choose to remain still. Because stepping forward means letting go of control. It means surrendering to a plan greater than your own. And surrender is not easy. It is terrifying. It means releasing your grip on the way you thought things should go. It means walking away from the safety of the known and embracing the uncertainty of the unknown. But, my dear, when the voice calls, it does not lead you into ruin. It does not lead you into destruction. It leads you into purpose. It leads you into wholeness. It leads you into the very life you were created to live. And when you ignore it, when you resist it, when you try to drown it out with your own plans, your own desires, your own fears, you will find yourself restless. You will find yourself chasing things that do not satisfy, filling your days with noise, but never finding peace, because you were never meant to live outside of the path that was set before you. You were never meant to wander aimlessly, searching for meaning in places that could never offer it. The signs will not stop. They will continue to appear in the moments you least expect, in the words of a stranger, in the sudden shift of circumstances, in the tug on your heart that refuses to let go. They will appear in the doors that refuse to open no matter how hard you push, in the opportunities that slip through your fingers no matter how tightly you try to hold on. And you may grow frustrated. You may question why things are not going the way you planned. But if you stop, if you breathe, if you listen, you will realize that it is not rejection, but redirection. It is not abandonment, but guidance. It is difficult, oh, it is difficult to trust what you cannot see. But every great move, every great calling, every great purpose requires that trust. It requires stepping out when the way is not clear. It requires saying yes before you know the outcome. It requires believing that if the voice has spoken, if the signs have appeared, then there is something greater waiting for you on the other side. Some will hear and still hesitate. Some will see and still doubt. But those who choose to listen, those who choose to follow, those who choose to move, even when fear grips their hearts, they will find themselves walking in places they never imagined. They will find themselves standing in rooms they once thought were beyond their reach. They will find themselves becoming who they were always meant to be. So, the question is not whether the voice is speaking. The question is not whether the signs are there. The question is whether you will listen, whether you will trust, whether you will move, because the voice will not force you, it will not drag you, it will not beg you, but it will call, it will lead, it will make a way, and it will wait for you to take the first step. There is something about a calling that does not let you rest. It follows you into the quiet hours of the night. It lingers in the spaces between your thoughts. It waits for you in the moments when the distractions fade away, when the world is still, when the weight of your own soul becomes too heavy to ignore. Some people spend their whole lives running from it, trying to drown it out with the noise of busyness, with the pursuit of things that will never truly satisfy. But you cannot outrun a voice that was meant for you. You cannot silence a call that was placed upon your spirit before you even knew your own name. It will always return, pressing itself into your heart, reminding you that you were made for more. And oh, how easy it is to ignore the signs when they do not align with your own plans. How easy it is to dismiss the voice when it asks you to walk a road you never intended to travel. But the call is not about comfort. It is not about convenience. It is about purpose. It is about destiny. It is about stepping into something greater than what you could have ever imagined for yourself. But the problem is, so many people are afraid of that kind of surrender. They are afraid of releasing control, afraid of stepping into the unknown, afraid of what it might cost them. So they settle. They settle for a life that is smaller than what was meant for them. They settle for relationships that do not nourish them, for work that does not fulfill them, for paths that were never meant to be theirs. And in that settling, they quiet the voice, not because it has stopped speaking, but because they have chosen not to listen. But the voice does not go away. It does not grow silent. It simply waits, patiently, relentlessly, for the moment they are ready to receive what was always meant for them. There are moments in life when everything you once relied on begins to shift. The things that once brought you comfort no longer satisfy. The places you once called home begin to feel foreign. The plans you once held onto so tightly start to fall apart before your eyes. And in those moments, it is easy to feel lost. It is easy to question why things are changing, why doors are closing, why the ground beneath you suddenly feels unstable. But what if the breaking was not meant to destroy you? What if the unraveling was not meant to harm you, but to make room for something greater? Because sometimes the voice speaks not by giving you more, but by taking things away. It speaks through the endings that you never expected, through the losses that shake you to your core, through the disruptions that you never saw coming. It speaks through the moments that force you to look up, to pay attention, to acknowledge that the life you were living was not the life you were meant to live. And it is in that breaking, in that discomfort, that you are given a choice to cling to what is crumbling or to step forward into the unknown, trusting that something greater is waiting on the other side. But trust is not easy. It requires walking into the darkness before you see the light. It requires saying yes before you know the outcome. It requires believing that if you are being called away from something, it is because you are being called towards something better. And yet, so many people resist. They hold on to what is familiar, even when it is no longer serving them. They refuse to let go, even when every sign is telling them that it is time to move. But the longer you resist, the heavier it becomes. The longer you delay, the more restless your spirit grows, because you were never meant to stay where you are. And the signs will not stop. The voice will not grow silent. It will continue to press upon you, to place opportunities in your path, to shift circumstances in ways that force you to pay attention. It will use people, it will use timing, it will use moments of stillness and moments of chaos. It will use whatever it must to get you to see, to understand, to acknowledge what has been there all along. And when you finally listen, when you finally open yourself to what is being spoken, there will be confirmation. There will be doors that open that no human hand could have unlocked. There will be moments of clarity that could not have come from your own reasoning. There will be peace, not the kind that comes from perfect circumstances, but the kind that settles deep within you, the kind that reassures you that you are exactly where you are meant to be. But you must be willing to move. You must be willing to step beyond fear, beyond doubt, beyond the limitations you have placed on yourself. Because if you are being called, if you are being led, then there's something waiting for you that is greater than anything you could have built on your own. But it requires trust. It requires surrender. It requires faith in something beyond what your eyes can see. And there will be moments when that faith is tested. There will be seasons when it feels as if the voice has grown silent, when the signs are no longer clear, when the path ahead is filled with uncertainty. But the silence is not abandonment. The waiting is not rejection. It is preparation. It is the space between the calling and the fulfillment. It is the moment when your trust is refined, when your faith is strengthened, when you are prepared for what is to come. And oh, what a tragedy it would be to give up in the waiting. What a tragedy it would be to turn back when you were on the verge of breakthrough, because the voice does not call you without purpose. It does not lead you without reason. And if you continue to listen, if you continue to trust, you will see that every step, every challenge, every delay was shaping you, molding you, preparing you for the very thing you were meant to step into. So do not ignore the signs. Do not dismiss the voice. Do not allow fear to keep you from stepping into what was always meant for you, because the voice is still speaking. The question is, will you listen? There is something about the way the voice calls that does not demand your attention yet refuses to be ignored. It is gentle but persistent, quiet but undeniable. It does not compete with the noise of the world, does not scream over the distractions, does not beg for recognition. Instead, it waits for you to be still enough to hear. And in that stillness, in that moment of surrender, in the pause between your worries and your doubts, it speaks. But not everyone listens. Not everyone wants to hear. Because to listen is to acknowledge that there is something greater than your own understanding, something guiding you beyond your own plans, something calling you into something bigger than yourself. And oh, how frightening that can be. Because if you truly listen, you cannot remain the same. If you truly hear, you must act. And action requires change, requires movement, requires a kind of trust that does not come easily. It is easier to ignore, to pretend the call is not for you, to convince yourself that the voice is just a figment of your own thoughts. It is easier to dismiss the signs, to tell yourself they are just coincidences, to convince yourself that the pull in your heart is nothing more than wishful thinking. But the truth is, you know, deep down, you know, because the voice is not unfamiliar to you. It has been speaking to you all along. It was there when you stood at the crossroads, unsure which way to go, and a door opened where you least expected. It was there when you questioned your worth, and a stranger spoke life into you without even knowing your pain. It was there in the opportunities that seemed impossible, in the protection you did not realize you needed, in the moments that should have broken you but instead made you stronger. And yet, even with all the signs, even with all the proof, doubt lingers. Fear whispers, and you hesitate, because the voice does not always call you to an easy road. It does not always lead you where you thought you would go. Sometimes it calls you away from comfort, away from familiarity, away from the things you once held dear. Sometimes it asks you to let go before it shows you what comes next. And that is the hardest part, isn't it? To release what you have known, to step forward without certainty, to trust that there is a plan even when you cannot see it. But if you refuse to move, if you refuse to trust, if you cling to what no longer serves you, you will find yourself restless. You will find yourself longing for something more, but refusing to take the steps to reach it. You will feel the weight of what could have been pressing upon you, reminding you that you were meant for something greater, but chose to stay where it was safe. And oh, what a tragedy that would be, to live your life knowing you were called but never answering, to see the signs but never following, to hear the voice but never trusting it enough to move, because the signs will not stop. The voice will not give up on you. It will continue to whisper in the quiet, continue to nudge you in the moments you least expect, continue to orchestrate your steps even when you do not realize it. But you must be willing to follow. You must be willing to trust. You must be willing to believe that if you are being called, it is because something greater awaits you. And oh, the beauty of what happens when you finally listen. The way the pieces begin to fall into place, the way the impossible becomes possible, the way your path becomes clear in ways you never could have predicted. It is not that the journey becomes easy, but that you are no longer walking it alone. It is not that all fear disappears, but that peace takes its place. And in that peace, in that certainty, in that deep knowing that you are exactly where you are meant to be, you will understand why the voice never stopped calling. Because you were never meant to live a life of confusion and doubt. You were never meant to wander aimlessly, searching for meaning in places that could never offer it. You were meant to walk with purpose, to live with intention, to step boldly into the life that was designed just for you. And everything that has happened, every closed door, every disappointment, every moment of uncertainty, was not meant to break you, but to prepare you. So when the voice calls, do not turn away. When the signs appear, do not ignore them. When the moment comes to step forward, do not hesitate, because the life you have been searching for, the answers you have been longing for, the purpose you have been waiting for, they have been waiting for you to listen. They have been waiting for you to trust. They have been waiting for you to take that first step. And the moment you do, everything will change. Not because the road will suddenly become smooth, not because all your questions will be answered, not because life will suddenly become easy, but because you will know without a shadow of a doubt that you are exactly where you are meant to be. Because you will finally understand that the voice was never leading you into uncertainty. It was leading you home. There is something powerful about the moment you decide to listen, not just to hear, not just to acknowledge, but to truly listen, because listening is an act of surrender. It is a declaration that you are ready, that you trust, that you are willing to step forward, even when the road is unclear. And in that moment, something shifts. The weight of hesitation begins to lift. The fear that once held you captive starts to lose its grip. The doubt that whispered so loudly in your ear begins to fade into the background. Because when you listen, when you say yes to the call, you are no longer walking alone. But too many people hesitate. They stand at the edge of their purpose, afraid to take the step, afraid of what it will cost, afraid of what they might lose. But oh, what they do not realize is that what they are afraid of losing was never meant to stay. The comfort they cling to is an illusion. The security they have built is fragile, and the life they are so desperately trying to protect is only a shadow of what was meant for them. Because when the voice calls, it is not asking you to give up what is good, it is asking you to step into what is greater. But how many ignore that call? How many convince themselves that they need more proof, more signs, more clarity before they move? How many let opportunities slip away, let moments pass them by, let purpose remain just out of reach because they are waiting for absolute certainty? But certainty is a luxury that faith does not afford. The call does not come with all the answers neatly laid out before you. It does not come with a guarantee that the road ahead will be easy. It comes with a choice to trust, a choice to believe, a choice to move even when everything in you wants to stay. And when you finally move, when you take that step, when you surrender to the call, you begin to see what was hidden before. You begin to understand why things had to happen the way they did, why certain doors had to close, why certain paths had to be blocked, because you were being guided all along. Even when you thought you were lost, even when you thought you were alone, even when you thought you had made too many mistakes to find your way back, the voice never left you. It was still there, still calling, still waiting for you to realize that the plan had never changed. You had just been delaying your part in it. And oh, the beauty of what happens when you step into that plan. The way things begin to align, the way the right people begin to appear, the way the pieces that once felt so scattered suddenly fall into place. It is not coincidence. It is not luck. It is what happens when you finally align yourself with the purpose that was always meant for you. It is what happens when you stop resisting, stop questioning, stop running. But the journey is not without challenge. Just because you have answered the call does not mean the road will be easy. In fact, it often means the opposite. Because purpose comes with pressure, destiny comes with difficulty, but every challenge, every test, every obstacle is not meant to stop you. It is meant to prepare you. It is meant to shape you into the person you need to become in order to carry the weight of what you have been called to do. And so many people give up in that process. They mistake resistance for rejection. They mistake difficulty for a sign that they are on the wrong path. But the truth is, the greatest callings come with the greatest battles. The most powerful destinies require the most refining. And if you are facing opposition, if you are feeling the weight of the journey, if you are walking through a season where everything feels uncertain, it is not because you are alone. It is because you are being strengthened. It is because you are being prepared. It is because you are being positioned for something greater than you can even imagine. So do not turn back. Do not let fear make you forfeit what was meant for you. Do not let doubt convince you to settle for less than what you were created for, because the voice has not stopped calling. The signs have not stopped appearing. The path has not disappeared. You just have to keep walking. You just have to keep trusting. You just have to keep believing that if you were called to it, you will be equipped for it. And when you reach the other side, when you look back and see how every moment, every challenge, every closed door was leading you exactly where you were meant to go, you will understand. You will see that the delays were not denials. The setbacks were not signs to stop. The waiting was not wasted. It was all part of the plan. It was all necessary. It was all leading you here. Because the voice does not lead you to failure. It does not call you to leave you stranded. It does not ask you to step out just to let you fall. It calls you because there is something waiting for you, something greater than you have known, something more powerful than you have imagined. But you must be willing to trust. You must be willing to believe. You must be willing to move. And oh, when you do, everything will change. Not because the journey will suddenly be easy, not because all your questions will be answered, not because life will suddenly become perfect, but because you will know with every fiber of your being that you are exactly where you are meant to be. Because you will finally understand that the voice was never leading you into uncertainty. It was leading you home. When the voice calls, it is not by accident. It does not whisper without purpose, does not stir your spirit without reason. It has been guiding you all along, through the closed doors, through the unexpected turns, through the moments when you felt lost but were in fact being led. Every sign, every nudge, every shift was a message waiting for you to acknowledge it. And now the choice is yours. You can ignore it, dismiss it, convince yourself that it is nothing more than coincidence. But deep down, you know the truth. You know that the restlessness in your heart is not without meaning. You know that the peace you feel when you listen is not an accident. You know that the path before you is not one of confusion, but of purpose. So do not resist. Do not delay. Do not let fear rob you of what was meant for you, because the voice does not call you to leave you stranded. It calls you to lead you home. And when you finally answer, when you finally trust, when you finally step forward, you will find that everything you have been searching for has been waiting for you all along.